to the Modern Lady Podcast. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Lindsay, and we are so happy that you're here joining us.
Beauty will save the world, so says Russian author Fyodor Dostoevsky. We only have to watch a crimson sunset at the beach or turn to admire the fresh white snow sparkling from evergreen boughs to remember how important beauty is in our lives. Why not consider bringing beauty into the ways we think and act, into our families and into our homes? In this episode, we are wrapping up our Homemaking Series with a refreshing look at the theme undercutting all the others we've been discussing, namely that we need beauty and the truth it speaks into our souls every day. But first, let's get to our etiquette tip of the week. And this week, Lindsay, I'm wondering about table settings and if Emily Post has anything to say about where our plates and cutlery should go, because we're getting into the holiday season. All these holiday parties are coming up. It would be really handy to know these things.
She sure does. And she uses a handy little acronym, which is the word forks. And so if we look at the word forks and pretend you're looking down at your table, and we're going to go from left to right. So on the left-hand side, the F stands for your fork. And then the O in forks is the shape of the dinner plate. And then the R, okay, that means nothing, but they needed to add it in, so ignore the R. And then the K stands for knife, and the S stands for spoon. And then with your left hand, you can do a little lowercase b, and that B reminds you that the bread plate goes up and over, to the left side of the table setting. And then with your right hand, you do a lowercase d, and that reminds you that your drink goes then to the upper right corner. And then she also reminds us that the knife always is turned at the knife blade and it faces the plate, and that your napkin is folded and it goes to the left of the fork on the far left-hand side or right onto the plate, and that a knife for the bread and butter is optional. So this is your basic table setup. This is not the elaborate table setup, but this is your regular standard Sunday night dinner table setup. So remember, forks.
Okay, that's good. I think I've been putting the napkin on the right side.
Yes, me too.
Not
under the knife and spoon. Nope. And
yes.
I do hesitate with the butter knife every time on which way to face the blade out. I stand there and flip it back and forth. So now I know. I'll never forget.
Yeah, that's really handy. And I remember a couple of these things, like a lot of it lends itself to common sense if you're thinking about how people are eating and reaching for the things that they need, right?
Yep. And then obviously there's so much more detail you can get into with if you're using a water goblet, wine glass, double old fashioned, that type of thing. But for right now, I think it's just a good basic reminder of how to set it. And now apparently, as a little anecdote, Emily Post often got confused herself while dining and would grab the wrong bread plate. She would grab her neighbor's, and then she was always very smooth about it. And she would just say, "Oh, pardon me, would you care to have mine?" is how she handled it, and would just pass hers down. So she even made a mistake.
Oh, that is very comforting to know after diving into all these Emily Post advice and observances, to know that even the best of the best make mistakes sometimes. There's hope for the rest of us.
Yes, and I now want bread knives. I was just thinking, those little ones, do you know what they look like? With the little pointy top, and they're short, right? Like, now I need to add those to my dinner party list.
In considering making a house a home, we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge our desire to add beautiful things to our spaces and our lives. So today we're chatting about beauty and the homemaker. And Lindsay, we were talking about this earlier, that there is a really strong connection between these two things, us and our desire for the beautiful.
Yeah, you know what? As we were talking, we realized we believe that the homemaker has this unique gift of bringing beauty into the world. And this to me is proven by our obsession with Pinterest and Instagram and home and garden television. So even though we think we've relaxed our standards over the years, when we compare ourselves maybe to the 1950s housewife, we do think we've relaxed our standards. We're still so clearly drawn to creating a beautiful life. And when we look at beauty, it lifts our hearts, it lifts our moods, encourages the arts and creativity, promotes skilled workers and lost trades like like plasterwork, those beautifully molded ceilings, and masonry, like the actual art of masonry. So when we look at it, beauty really is timeless.
You even notice that too when you're considering major landmarks around the world. Like, what are the things that are still drawing people after thousands of years? And what is it about those things, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say from your trip earlier in the fall, you were talking about the churches in Quebec even.
Absolutely. I hate to be negative, but in the Catholic Church, we've been using the word recovations, and I suspect it's not just the Catholic Church that feels this way about their beautiful old buildings, but a lot of them have been stripped of that timeless beauty, and the new buildings being built are not even close. They're a shadow of like the former cathedrals. And I think this is doing a disservice not only to Catholics, but to our communities at large. We were just in Quebec, and it seemed like they have an old Catholic church on every corner. And I was just really struck by how many people were drawn into those places and looking around. We're there midweek, and there are just people, and they aren't Catholics, but they're drawn in by the very beauty of these churches. And so it is in our best interest to fight for the preservation of the history and the culture and the art. Not only do the items in these churches serve a liturgical purpose, it serves a much greater purpose to our communities as a whole.
And that idea too, that beauty is not an instant thing. Like, if something is going to be timeless, then that doesn't necessarily mean it happens in a snap or in a flash, right? Because like you think about these people, and you talked about the Masons, and they sometimes didn't even see the completion of some of these bigger architectural projects, right? But they did it for the joy of serving through beauty. And I really love that idea. I love that concept and how we can bring it into our individual lives in serving our everyday communities. That like, we're not necessarily just doing this for the immediate Instagram, Pinterest gratification, that beauty has much more far-reaching goals and purpose than sometimes we give it credit for.
There's that one quote about motherhood that we won't see all the rewards of our motherhood, that we're like Moses in creating and reaching for a promised land that we're never going to reach. And so even the very acts of our homemaking does set the tone for the future generations, like you were saying. And the other thing I love about those trades, like we were just saying with the stonemasons and that sort of thing, they mastered their skill. And I think that is something we should take away from that as homemakers as well. They did repetitive, mundane things. They carved the same columns that were for a church or something. That was their entire life's job. But they did every single one. They gave it as much attention as they gave to the first one. And I think that is something that we can take from that as homemakers.
Perseverance and beauty.
Absolutely.
We were also talking about, like, there was a place for both objective and subjective beauty. And I do find, though, looking out into the world, sometimes that line gets kind of muddied. But there is still such a thing as objective beauty. So that quote, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think that there is definitely room to consider like personal taste and styles, and that's where I see subjective beauty coming into play. But there's also, when we were talking about these timeless things that are beautiful that we can consider even in our everyday lives, to consider what are those objectively beautiful traits, emotions, feelings that you're desiring to bring into your life on a daily basis, and how can you cultivate those? Because I really get the sense that that's really two different mindsets. Do you think that is the case?
Yeah, and I think that what I've noticed is that when I am keeping my house clean, I see the beauty in the ordinary things in my house in a way I can't when it's full of clutter and I'm stressed. So when I walk through a clean, tidy house, when you see the sunlight coming through, and I'm not even being sappy here, like I think everybody can agree with me that you'll see pockets of light in the house that you might not notice in other ways. And you walk through and you just see this beauty that you wouldn't have noticed unless you're giving attention to it and taking care of your home. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, these clean lines.
Yeah. And there's lines of sight, right? Or sight lines throughout our homes. I'm a big fan of sight lines, and maybe it was all of my years training on visual design at Pier 1 Imports, but we were taught a lot about sightlines. And so in my house, I've carefully cultivated some beautiful sightlines, and I really still appreciate that. And that's one of the first things I notice when I look through a magazine or in people's houses. So there's just such beauty and such simple things in our houses, but we can't see that when we're bogged down with clutter or stress.
Mm-hmm. So can you explain to me, a non-Pure One import employee, someone who very much appreciates design and display, but I'm still playing the catch-up game. What exactly are sightlines that you would consider from a design perspective?
So it's if you're standing at one point of the house and you just like literally look down. So it's the architecture of the structure, but then you can create architecture in a bland space. It's with our houses being more open concept. Your house is a little older than mine, so it's a little bit more with rooms, which is what I actually prefer. But so like with an open concept house, if you look from my front door, you can see all the way to the back of my house. And so I have purposefully created items that either blend into the wall or pop out at the right spots to create so that my eye jumps over pieces and keeps visual interest. But it doesn't look too stark or jump out at you. Or when I'm sitting, there's a spot where I sit on my son's room floor when we're doing our evening prayers, and I can see into the girls' bedroom. And it's just neat how the one decorative wall in the boys' room is opposite the girls' wall, and those two walls play off each other. And so it's just like, wow, when you look, or there's a sight line again from our bedroom hallway down to our bedroom that it just focuses on a simple chair in the corner, with pillows in the little corner. And so it's just where your eye goes.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. And we were talking like that obviously takes a lot of care and intention.
Yeah.
And that's not something that is necessarily widely practiced, specifically focusing on taking care of how your home presents itself. Right. Right? That would be the old concept of being house proud.
Yes. I love that term, and it's not a term that most people say anymore unless you're maybe in your 80s or 80 at heart like I am.
Same here.
Right? Put your hand up. So I love the term house proud, and I think that we shied away from that for many, many reasons over the last couple of years, but I think part of it is the idea of pride. And when we actually look at it, it has nothing to do with pride. So I think they're actually completely different things. So being house proud, this used to be a good thing, but now we've abandoned this concept, believing it to just be archaic, a reminder of the baby boom, of just the 1950s submissive housewife. But I challenge everyone to revisit this concept. It's not the same thing as being prideful. So here's a few things of what I think it means to be house proud. It's working hard to afford things and not just creating debt. And it's teaching your children to take care of the home and the items in it that cost that hard-earned money. And it's finding your own style. You were touching on this earlier, and decorating your home in a way that reflects your family and your values, and not just being trapped by trends. And you don't have to be trapped down or tied down by Instagram and Pinterest, HGTV.
Yeah, and that's hard. That's hard if you are on social media to steer clear from. You're right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you should free yourself from that expectation of having a designer home on a non-designer budget. And you don't have the skills as a designer. Very few people do. I don't. You don't. We're not trained designers. So I think that when we kind of let go, there's great freedom in just accepting our limitations, that we're not going to have a magazine perfect life, but that you work within your limitations. And that's what being house proud is.
Yeah. And it's even for your lifestyle, your personal style, it comes across as more stylish, ironically, even if you're not within the current trends, if you do what you're comfortable with.
Absolutely.
And then people will look at you and say like, oh, well, that's so stylish, even if it's not the current trend. That's such an interesting oxymoron to keep in mind.
And we have to remember trends, and I tell everybody this because it's something we never sit down and think about. Trends are carefully manufactured, and they're developed on purpose to get you to spend money. So don't be fooled by the current style. If they didn't tell you that the shoes you bought last year aren't in style anymore, you wouldn't go out and buy new shoes. They have to tell you that, oh, that's so last year, whatever it is in your home or that you're wearing. And that is literally a team of people sitting around a table trying to get you to spend more money. So I think that really spending time and asking yourself, what do I like in my house and that I wear? I have dressed the same oh my goodness, since 1994. And I'm not, and there are people who've done that in a not good way. We're like, oh man, you need a makeover. But I think for the most part, I've kept a core style that I think is very identifiable for me. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I do need a makeover. Somebody can shoot me a message if they think I do. But I feel like I've really identified my style. And while I can add and take away pieces that are slightly trendy or, current, I still have a core style in my decorating and on my person. And so I wish everybody would really work to develop that. It's a great feeling.
Right. And, like there are a few trends that I do try to get into. And inevitably, if it is not me, I have to give up on them. Yeah. Like this summer, do you remember I was trying to wear hats?
Yes, we had
the wide brim hats.
Yes.
And I was trying so hard. I was like, oh, but you don't understand. Like, not only is it trendy, but it's practical. Like I'm saving my skin. And it is like hats are always a good thing, but specifically those wide brim straw hats. Oh, I gave it my all this summer. And it just, I look back on pictures, it didn't look terrible, but I knew looking, I was like, oh, I was really trying. And that stands out. Whereas, if I can take a little bit of time to explore, and your taste might change, but it definitely won't be as fast as the cultural trends are changing. Once you find something to be able to, like what you said, invest, like not go into debt, save up your money because you're not spending as quickly. And so you're able to afford better quality things that may last a little bit longer.
Yeah, definitely. Now back to being timeless in our homes. I have some home decorating tips and we just have about 4 here because so many things are obvious, but here's a few that I've come up with that I think really do make an impact in your house. So the first thing is bright, airy, and I am still a fan, although it is on its way out, of lots of white. And everybody's like, how you have all that white in your house? You've got 4 kids at home every day and a cat. But I feel that white actually cleans very, very well. So I tend to buy white sheets, white towels, a lot of white window panels. We do a lot of white furniture, very crisp white. And I feel like on fabrics, you can really clean it immediately as soon as you see a spot. It's done, it's clean. And with white furniture, I just love painting it. As soon as you see it, a quick touch up and it's fine. White walls. I love white walls with big, oversized, colorful art. I just think it makes, if you're on a budget, that instantly makes your house look classy and well, it looks designery. I was going to say well planned out, but that's how a designer would do it. So big fan of white.
Right. It's like that concept of a blank canvas, right? A blank canvas is literally white. And then you can change things. And that's how you can go with the seasons, different decor for seasons. Or if you are changing your style, changing your taste, that makes it so much easier than repainting an entire room. Yep. I know I love the look of white, but I also really love to go along with that idea of a blank canvas. For me, neutrals in general, and I've really loved dark neutrals. So I'm kind of like the opposite, the anti Lindsay decorating.
You're my dark side.
No, that's. Oh, I forget what side is black in the yin and yang, but I'm that one.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So. But it's also easy to hide. It's easy to repair as long as it's dark enough. But on the other hand, going along with what you're saying about white, I could see it being easier to bleach your linens, and as opposed to trying to scrub upholstery, like I have like linen colored couches, which is kind of the worst of every color if you have kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can see that.
We might do a black bedroom, like fully black. But yeah, like you're saying, it's the same idea of a blank canvas. So just picking I love the idea of massive contrast too, and either a dark navy. But I feel like if somebody only had enough money to pick like one paint color for their house, I recommend Chantilly Lace by Benjamin Moore. And it's just a good solid white. And even living in Canada where half the year is snow, I thought I would hate seeing the white outside and the white inside. Nope, still love it. I've loved all our white rooms this whole time.
Do you find that the natural light plays off really well with the white
yes.
inside? Like, do you have to turn on your lights as often
No.
if you have white walls?
No, it's so
I was wondering
bright
about
and
that.
it's so cheerful. And I just absolutely love it. It truly feels uplifting. And I've had dark rooms in the past, and again, from a design standpoint, I love them. I love that cozy feeling. But I think if you really are new to this, the easiest option is to go for white. It is harder to decorate with the dark contrast. So for somebody who is just looking for basic decorating tips, I say just start with the white, because it just gives you that overall clean, airy feeling, and it's easier to decorate with.
Cool.
Our second point is, I was going to say with decorating, you do have to spend money, but you don't have to spend as much as you think you have to. So quality is noticeable, and cheap does look cheap. And I hate to say that. There are some things you can substitute for them from like the dollar store or Walmart, like wicker baskets for storage and stuff. But junk looks like junk. And so I think you have to be really careful at what you're buying. And you should spend a little bit more on the things that you love. Find out like something, because the new dining table we bought, I've loved for 6 years, and it wasn't that expensive. You can get a lot tackier ones for a lot more money. It's from Struck Tube, which is a great store out of Quebec that we have a few locations in Ontario.
Them.
The prices are great, and the quality, again, having sold furniture for as long as I did, I know about furniture, and the quality is great. But that table is the table I had picked out when we had bought this house before we even moved in, and it was stored as a picture on my phone for 6 years. I didn't stop liking it, and that to me is a mark of that it's timeless, that we love it, that it's my personal style, and that I'm not getting swayed by trends. And so I might as well go ahead and spend the money. And I'll use the example of the wallpaper in our dining room. We get a lot of compliments on that wallpaper. That wallpaper did cost a fortune, but we still love it. We had it hung 6 years ago. We don't need any art in that room. That wallpaper is the art. Every day that my husband and I walk through that room, we still love that wallpaper. So the things that you really have your heart set on, and that both you and your husband really, really like, spend the money. Think about it. Save up for it. Because again, I don't believe in going into debt for this. Save up, get it. And then really think about the things that you don't have to spend the money on. But it does cost a little bit more than you think it does to make your house look good, but not as much as you think it does. And HomeSense, we always push HomeSense.
Yes. Yeah, I love walking through HomeSense, and Winners, the prices are so good. And you're right, it's usually very good quality.
It is, yes.
In there, and unique.
Yep.
So if you find something that is your taste and style, that could really become like a real conversational piece.
Yeah. The third thing then kind of goes off this, it's anchor pieces. So having anchor pieces in your house. And so you start with your focal point, like a television or a fireplace or a TV over a fireplace, which is still being done in the design world. So many people put the TVs way too high. That's a massive pet peeve of mine. So if it's going to be too high over your fireplace, please don't do it. But yeah, TVs and fireplaces. So pick your focal point, think about your sight lines. And then another anchor piece is your couches. Ours were cheap. We've had 2 sets of couches since we bought this house in 2012. The second set that we currently have, we bought at Leon's. I got to plug Leon's because they've been doing a much better job with their contemporary decor. And we bought their maintenance program package that was like an extra $200. And it's like a 6-year warranty on our couches, and they'll replace them or send people to clean them or send us sprays. And they were still, I think with taxes and all said and done, like probably just over $1,500. Like the price is ridiculous. And we have, those are the only couches in my house with 6 of us, and they're still in impeccable shape. So take care of what you have.
Wow. Yeah, that's what you were saying about being house proud, right? That's reminiscent of the days we were talking about how when women would lay doilies on other wood furniture to underneath the lamps and whatnot to protect the wood so that these things do last for several years or more.
And this is
more than several.
Here's your Jeopardy word of the day. It's an anti-massacre, and I think I'm saying it right. I'd have to look it up, but it's I read a lot of old literature, so I have to look these things up. But it's always stuck with me. And it was that either lace or fabric that's where your head goes on a chair and where your arms go on a chair. And it was that decorative piece of fabric or the lace that would protect it from your hair oil in your hands and that kind of thing. So those things are fallen out of style, but you can see that our grandmothers took care of their furniture. We just don't do the same, and that has contributed to our throwaway culture, which isn't good, right?
Yeah, Yeah.
The next thing is lighting. Lighting makes a huge difference in your house. If you walk into a cookie cutter, basic new subdivision house like mine is, the first thing I would tell somebody to do is to switch out the lighting. Get rid of what we call the boob lights that are $15.99 at Home Depot. Get rid of them and go and buy some semi-flush or some beautiful drop shade drum lamp lights. Like when you walk into a room and you see proper lighting, and it's big enough. So many people do things that are far too small. Your light should be roughly 1/3 of the room, actually, when you look at the measurements. And anyways, there's a whole way to do it. But it should be big enough. It should really be a standout piece. Lighting makes a huge difference. So go bold. Have fun with it. The next thing is window coverings. So this is another thing I tell people if they're going to only do a few things in their house, having the proper window coverings. I'm still a fan of actual window panels. Having custom ones done would be amazing, but they're very expensive. So having window panels, but they have to go floor to ceiling. People, do you hear me? Please hang your window panels floor to ceiling. In a standard house, that's a 96-inch panel, and you want them to just skim the floor nicely. It makes your room look huge. It's a massive difference. It's one of the biggest decorating tips that I can give. And likewise, the last thing is art. So get a big enough piece of art. Again, people do very small things hanging on their walls and they do them far too high. So do much bigger and much lower. And if you do those things, lighting, proper art, good couches. Oh, and an area rug. Make sure again that you get one that's not too small. A big area rug, and it has to go like halfway under the couch legs and halfway up your bed. There's rules for these things. It changes the look of the whole room. And those are your anchor pieces.
And you know what? You can tell that those are tips that lead to classic design. So everything else, the little finishing touches, change between design blogs and designers. But those things that you said are common ones that I see anyways through the accounts that I follow, especially the hanging up the curtains one. I know like almost on a daily basis, someone on the internet is telling me to hang my curtains closer to the ceiling.
It makes a huge difference. We've had them both ways, and you walk into a room and it changes the look of the entire room. And I always want to tell people, I think in this day and age, I recommend getting off the computer and actually going back to magazines. Treat yourself to a magazine. That business is going out, and I as a writer myself, I really want to push for publishing. But Style at Home, House and Home, they're beautiful magazines. So put the Instagram down every once in a while, because everybody does the same designs on Instagram. Oh my goodness, it's the same trends right now. So go get an actual magazine, share them with your friends, make a cup of tea, and just enjoy that time and look through and start to figure out your own style from those.
And another benefit that I could see from going back to magazines is you are more free to make your own opinions.
Yes.
Right? You are not influenced by other people's comments on the influencers, right? So if you think about it, online, you're almost getting hit double whammy. And that makes it very, very difficult to distinguish your own voice and your own taste and your own opinion and that of the 2,000 people inputting their own opinions on the design.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's time for our What We're Loving This Week segment of the show. And Lindsay, you said you... Oh, wait, I don't even know what you were going to say because you kept me in the dark about your loves this week.
Well, I have one love and I have one hate. And I wasn't going to make this a negative. I really wanted to keep this positive because it's our fun way to end it. But there's something that I just really have been struggling with, and I want to reach out to everyone. So as you know, this has been the year of Lindsay reading the classics. It's reading everything I've downloaded on my Kindle that I never actually read before. So as I'm nearing the end, I thought it was time to read Moby Dick. And I have tried, I have given it my all. And I've read a lot of classics. I can't do it. I was by the 20% finished mark. I was starting to skim it. By 25%, I was just couldn't and then 30%, 35%. Now I did lean on a group of homeschool moms and I said, have you guys read this? Like either tell me that it's okay to let a book go. Like I'm not a quitter. Tell me if it's okay to just move on and enjoy my life again. Or do you persevere? And my poor husband every night, I'm like, Jason, it's Moby Dick time. I can't do it. I can't. And then I said, the book Moby Dick has become my Moby Dick. Like so I have to say I was hating it and I love my reading time every night. So let me just say 2 nights ago, I just called it quits. I brought the ship back into port. I let it go. I'm done with the book. So I had to say that's been dominating a lot of my my time and I'm done with Moby Dick. I'm angry.
Well, you know what? We're all very invested in your journey through the classics this year. And your emotion in how you feel about Moby Dick has really got to me. And I'm relieved that you're relieved.
I want to know if any of our listeners have read it. And so if they can, and I'm not talking audiobooks. I mean, I could have popped that in my ears and cleaned my house. I'm talking about actually sitting down and reading Moby Dick, like the 20 pages where he just describes different kinds of whales. Has anybody actually read that book? So let me know.
The only experience I have with Moby Dick is from the movie Matilda.
Yep.
Do you remember?
I haven't seen it.
And she reads the first line. She just reads the first line because she's just going to read Moby Dick. And now I'm thinking, I was like, oh, yeah, so pretentious, Matilda.
Of course, Matilda. Now I am loving something, so we'll just end this for me on a positive note.
On a positive.
So as I continue on with my obsession of Christmas shows on YouTube, and by Christmas shows I mean like cooking and decorating shows on YouTube, I have rediscovered the classic Martha Stewart's. I'm talking like late 80s right through to the late 90s, early 2000s, and so this week I've been watching one of her Christmas specials that takes place that she does around the 12 days of Christmas. And so each meal she makes or things she decorates with is one of the 12 days of Christmas. And she actually explains the original religious symbolism behind each thing. And it's a great program. And are you familiar with the term ASMR?
No, I don't. Yeah. What is that?
Yeah, it's autonomous sensory meridian response, and it's this hugely popular thing on YouTube right now where it's like sounds that people make that are quiet that like give you goosebumps. It's a really weird genre, subclass of videos on YouTube. It's huge right now, ASMR. And I realized that that's why Martha Stewart was so darn popular, because I'm watching her make her little 2 turtle doves and gluing like real feathers on everything, and you go into a trance. You actually go into a Martha Stewart trance, and she's so calm, and she's like, you want to make sure you find white feathers that are perfectly unspoiled, and if you don't have a chicken coop, I mean, I do, of course I have a chicken coop. And then she keeps saying, it's just typical Martha who has all of the proper things ready, but you go into an actual trance. So Martha Stewart, if you're looking up ASMR, just watch some old classic Martha Stewart episodes about so they do whole episodes where they redo her whole house, like where it's a full renovation, and these are from the late 80s, and they're really, really cool. And you see the whole process of her renovating traditional houses. So anyways, loving like Martha.
Pre-HGTV.
It is. Yeah, it's really cool. So what about you? What are you loving?
Well, I just finished an audiobook. So this book is called Venetia by an author, Georgette Heyer, and Heyer is spelled Heyer. I have seen her name floating around for a while on various Facebook groups as recommendations for when people want books that are lighthearted but not but still has some meat to it, right? And so I was like, it looks Regency era. I will probably like it. So I actually downloaded the audiobook and I listened to it while I was doing some of my chores and errands last week. And I really loved it. It's kind of a cross between like Jane Austen, not as dense as Jane Austen, but I mean like several steps above like a romance you would get from the drugstore. Right. So it's kind of like a Jane Austen light, we'll call it. Jane Austen light, a new genre alert. So Georgette Heyer, and she has quite a lot of titles, and I've only listened to the one, but I can highly recommend that. It was the classic strong, smart heroine during that time in England with the estates and the titles, and lots to love there.
That's great.
And then my second love for the week is with the weather turning colder. A few years ago, my husband gifted me for Christmas an electric heated blanket. And it's like those full-size ones. And I just want to say I've had conversations with a couple of people over the last couple of weeks how we're trying to go to bed earlier, but getting over that hump to like get ready for bed, especially if you're sitting on the couch and you've been watching a show or you've been reading a book, to make that transition is so difficult in the winter when it's cold. But what I do is I just stick that electrical heated blanket under my bed sheets when I make my bed in the morning. And so as I walk past it to brush my teeth, I click it on high. And then when I crawl into bed, it's all warm and the sheets are warmed. So there's a little winter living hack for you and something to put on your Christmas list.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Okay, that's going to do it for us this week, Lindsay. Where can people find us?
Well, you can find us on Facebook, and if you do, you'll see a lot more of our live videos coming up. We plan on doing more for all of the things we just can't, get into these podcasts. So please follow us on Facebook at The Modern Lady Podcast. That's the same name on Instagram as well, The Modern Lady Podcast. And I'm on Instagram at Linny Autumn, and Michelle is at Sachs, and that's SACHS.
And we wanted to thank you once again for tuning in today. Thank you so much for leaving a rating and a review on iTunes. If you've done so, we're up to 9 5-star ratings, Lindsay.
Oh.
That's what it was this morning, I think. And so we just really appreciate all of you taking the time to not only listen, but to chat with us and to converse with us. And we've been having a blast. And thanks so much, everyone. Have a great week.